Hello, and welcome to this quick tutorial on how to use an idea in psychology that hardly anyone knows about, except from really successful people. This made me millions of dollars, and I think if you do it as well, it's going to massively increase the chances of you getting rich as fast as you can. And it's called pain transmutation. The thing is this doesn't actually have a name, because it's so commonly misunderstood, and no one really thinks about how to do this, so I kind of had to come up with a name, and I thought that sounded kind of cool. So pain transmutation is pretty simple to understand. Basically, in life, you have your, for some reason, why is my pen not working? Let's just screw that in, there we go. So in your life, you exist and you're in pain, okay? This is kind of the condition of the human existence. Now, it can be financial pain. It can also be status pain, where you haven't got the status. It can be control pain, where you feel like you haven't got the control. It can be achievement pain, where you feel like you haven't achieved enough. But basically, any sort of psychological pain to do with feeling like you haven't made enough progress, or you're not enough of a person in terms of how much money you make or anything like that. This is not talking about pain, physical pain, okay? So I'm not talking about like migraines. Like, we're not talking about physical pain, we're talking about mental pain. So I want to get that out of the way. Now, how do we use this? So here's something really exciting to talk about. The primary reason that humans do anything ever, full stop, is due to pain avoidance. And it was actually Freud that figured this out. So pretty much all of our behaviors are engineered towards us avoiding pain or moving towards pleasure. But if you ask yourself what is pleasure, it's not necessarily the absence of pain, but it's kind of hard to feel pleasure when pain is present. We could get into that debate. Anyway, this is really important because what you need to do is work, and you need to do what you know you need to do. So the thing about becoming successful is it's actually quite simple, because you probably know what you need to do to become successful and make money. If you sat down and really thought about it for a long enough time, you could probably figure out what actions to take. It could be making 100 cold calls a day, it could be selling, it could be building this thing or that thing or whatever, right? So why don't you do it? Why do you know what you need to do, but you can't seem to do it? Like, that's a really difficult question to answer, and I'm going to answer it here. Why is it that you know what needs to be done, and you know what, if you did, would get you the result you want, but you just can't seem to bring yourself to actually do it in the first place? Why the hell does that happen? You know what to do to get what you want. Like, for example, let's say that you want to be in good physical shape, and you want to be all fit and you want to be healthy, but you know that you need to go to the gym, and you know you need to eat healthy, and you know you need to resist your impulses, so you know what to do, but for some bloody reason you just can't do it. Why? Well, it's usually simply because you're not in enough pain. And so one of my favorite and honestly most ruthless and best productivity hacks to force myself to work is to increase the amount of pain that I feel. Not that I feel, because here's the thing, right? Here's you. In life, you've got problems, and these problems are painful. So the problem could be that you can't put your daughter through the right school, or you can't afford to buy your girlfriend dinner. And what happens is all these problems are painful, and we receive this pain. And the problem is human beings, we really do not like to be in pain. We will do anything to escape pain. And so what we do is we do these things called coping mechanisms. And a coping mechanism is something that you do that when you do it, you basically avoid pain. And these coping mechanisms can be anything such as alcohol, because when you're drunk, you don't feel much pain, smoking, gaming, gambling, you name it, like porn, all these things, just things that you do in the short term that give you instantaneous pleasure that temporarily remove you from pain. Video games is the prime example of this. Because the thing is I'm not telling you that you need to increase the amount of pain in your life. I'm telling you you need to increase the amount of pain you feel. These are two very different things, because pain can be present in your life, but you might not feel it in its entirety because you're behaving in a way that allows you to cope with the pain. Imagine you get migraines, and let's say that you've got a brain tumor, okay? But you don't know about it. You're getting migraines, you're getting really, really painful headaches. And what you do is every time you get a migraine, you take a tablet and the migraine goes away. That's a coping mechanism to remove the pain. If you sit with the migraine and you let it become painful enough, what will happen is you'll give yourself no choice but to go to a neurologist or go to a doctor and get a diagnosis for why these headaches exist. And the only reason you'll do that and encourage that diagnosis is because you're in enough pain to do so. But if every time you get a migraine, you take a pill and it goes away instantaneously and comes back tomorrow, you take another pill, goes away, you're coping, you're not in pain, and therefore you won't do anything about the pain. What pain basically is, on a physical and also mental stroke, spiritual stroke, emotional level, is an indication that something is wrong. It's a feedback mechanism. It's your brain telling you, we are not safe, we need to leave, or we need to change our behavior or change the way things are going. And that's what pain basically is. And it's very, very effective at telling you what you should do. But if you numb it, you feel good in the short term and you numb yourself away from the pain, and you dull your senses and your pain senses basically, but the problem doesn't leave. And so you can cope and feel less pain, but the problem still persists. And basically you're going to be a slave to these coping mechanisms for as long as you are not solving this problem. And so what you need to learn to do if you want to become obscenely, insanely productive in your life is remove all of these coping mechanisms and replace them with the best coping mechanism of them all, which is work. You see, work, if acted out in the right way, is the best coping mechanism for pain. It's not quite as easy as gaming. It's definitely not as easy as weed. It's not as easy as alcohol. It's not as easy as porn. It's not as easy as junk food and all these things. But if you can reshape your perspective and fall in love with your work and see it as a way for you to escape the pain. First of all, when you're working and when you're deep in the work, you're not thinking about the problem, which means that you're numb to the problem, which is an amazing thing. But second of all, the funny thing is almost always through the work, you will solve the problem that is causing the pain. And so, for example, if you're in pain because you feel like you haven't achieved anything, or you've got really low status and therefore you've got loads of anxiety, or if you're kind of like a little bit depressed, a little bit sad, and you feel out of control, or you hate your boss, I'm not saying you need to like work harder for someone else. I'm talking about like, you know, productive like business work or exercise. So a lot of people, a lot of athletes, the reason they became so good is because they were in such a bad place, and they put all of that pain and all of that energy, they transmutated it, right? Which is basically where you take it and you kind of rechannel it. So transmutation basically means taking energy and rechanneling it, at least to my best understanding of the word. And pain is energy. What you can do is you can take all of this pain and you can, it's energy. And what energy basically does is it gives us a reason to do something. It's important to address the problems as they exist, because, you know, you don't want to just bury yourself in work and cope away. But if the problem is a little bit too dark to solve right now and you haven't got the capacity to process any trauma, I've always found it very helpful to go into work and to insulate myself into work. Is this healthy? No. Is it better than using video games, pornography, junk food, weed, or alcohol? Yes, it most certainly is. And often what I found is that by working harder and by focusing more on my business and becoming more successful, my anxiety is alleviated, my depression, well, I've never been depressed, but I don't really do the whole depression thing or the anxiety thing. That's for another day. I see them as symptoms, not diseases. Anytime I feel something bad, I can usually work my way out of it. Is it the healthiest thing? No. But it's the best coping mechanism to have, and it's the best addiction to have, in my opinion, because A, that's my worldview and my identity and how I built myself, but B, it is actually pretty cool, and it can make you a lot of money. And so next time you're in pain, instead of pulling out your Instagram reels or turning your Xbox on, pull up your laptop and start doing some work, and try and engineer like a connection between feeling pain and suffering and going straight to work, because that's how you make a lot of money, because you're probably in a lot of pain. And the second you remove these coping mechanisms from your life, you're going to see how much pain you're actually in. I've built a program called Imperium Academy. It's a step-by-step training program that walks you through everything on how to start an agency, coaching, or consulting business in 6 weeks or less. It's completely free. There's no credit card required. There's already 30,000 people getting results in there. So go and check it out. It will be the best thing you ever do for your life, and I'll see you in the next video.